Last week, Nintendo released a firmware update for the Switch 2 that introduced a standout new feature, one that's especially awesome for players who spend a lot of time playing their games in handheld mode. A handheld mode boost feature for original Switch 1 titles when played on Switch 2. This feature essentially forces compatible Switch 1 games to run as if they're in docked mode when you're playing in handheld mode. As a result, supported games can look just like they do when the Switch 2 is docked, but now directly on the Switch 2's screen. This new feature brings several advantages. For one, most Switch 1 titles were limited to just 720p at most when played in handheld mode. With handheld mode boost enabled, those same games can often operate at higher resolutions, up to 1080p, which matches the Switch 2's screen. The result is a noticeably sharper, clearer image for a number of Switch 1 games when played on Switch 2. Beyond resolution though, this feature can also eliminate some of the visual compromises that were typically made for original Switch games. Things like reduced draw distance, low quality textures, and scaled back rendering. Originally, developers made these trade-offs to improve performance and preserve battery life for various Switch 1 games when played in portable mode on the original Switch. Now with the added power of this Switch 2 and this new feature enabled, for the most part, you can say goodbye to those limitations. That said though, the new features do come with some things you need to be aware of. One, because the option forces TV mode operation in handheld mode, it means your Joy-Cons are going to operate as if they were a Pro controller. Want to use another controller, like say in tabletop mode? Then you're going to need to first detach the Joy-Con controllers from the console in order to do so. Secondly, this feature will also disable the touchscreen. So if you like to use the touchscreen in a game in portable play, then you'll need to first disable the handheld mode boost in order to do so. Those two things I've talked about are pretty minor though in the inconvenience department. The next two things are a little bit more serious. For one, not all games are going to be compatible with this new mode. Most original Switch games are, but some are not, like the Pikmin games apparently. Now there is a simple way to tell if your game is getting the handheld mode boost or not when the option is enabled, and that simply is by touching the Switch 2 screen. When a game is being handheld boosted, it will say the screen is disabled during handheld mode boost. If you see that in the top left corner of your screen, then you'll know that your Switch 1 game is getting handheld mode boosted. The final thing you have to be aware of, and you probably already guessed it by now, is battery life. With this option enabled, handheld mode boosted Switch 1 games will consume more of the Switch 2 battery. The difference could be anywhere from a minor to a major power consumption, and for the Switch 2, battery life is a pretty sensitive issue. Luckily, you can disable or enable the feature anytime you wish, so it's not like you're permanently locked into using it one way or another. But safely put, the new option enabled, expect to charge your Switch 2 more. So with that said, let's take a look at some Switch 1 games and see how they look now with the feature enabled. What I've done here for this video is taken screenshots of various Switch 1 games with the feature disabled and with it enabled so we can compare the differences between having it on and off. You best believe when I started to do these comparisons, I started with the Xenoblade Chronicles games. For those that don't know, these Xenoblade Chronicles games, in handheld mode, well, they don't look the best. Not only do they play at a much lower resolution compared to when played in docked mode, they often look blurrier, the texture rendering for the games is reduced greatly, there's reduced effects, yeah, it's the whole works. Simply put, they take a big hit in the visual department when played in handheld mode. But here with the boost enabled, we get to see games like Xenoblade Chronicles 2 look much better in handheld mode, with more detail, a sharper image, and just simply looking clearer and better overall. Docked mode was always the better way to play Xenoblade Chronicles 2, and well, you can experience that now in handheld mode. It's the same with Torna, the standalone expansion for Xenoblade Chronicles 2. In handheld play, you're going to notice a lot more detail in the environment and in the characters. Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition also looks much better with the handheld boost on. You probably never want to go back and play with the handheld boost off after experiencing it. As for Xenoblade Chronicles 3, the difference is a lot less staggering. Xenoblade Chronicles 3 at times isn't too bad in handheld mode by default. Nevertheless, you'll get to experience more details in the visual quality, and of course, there's going to be a much higher resolution here. That makes the game look clearer on the Switch 2 screen with the boost enabled. The Fire Emblem games were kinda in the same boat as the Xenoblade Chronicles games, where these games played in handheld mode tended to take a nice size hit in how they looked on the portable screen. Fire Emblem Three Houses is a solid example. Here with the handheld boost feature enabled, you'll get to see characters and their environments with a lot more detail, especially the characters. Of course, resolution is going to be increased here too. The same goes for the Warriors games. Fire Emblem Warriors gets the same treatment, more details, increased resolution and whatnot. I do want to add that Warriors, the original one, with the performance setting enabled, does play in 60 FPS in portable play now. That alone is a big improvement. Three Hopes definitely looks better too, with the boost enabled. Better details, characters look better, especially those outlines on the outside of the characters. Oh, and this plays at 60 FPS too, in case you didn't already know. Even Engage gets a little bit of a nice bump here with the handheld boost option enabled, and it looks better as a result. The whole Fire Emblem series definitely reaps the rewards with the new boost mode. Super Smash Bros. Ultimate definitely looks a lot better with the handheld boost feature enabled. It looks sharper, clearer, and you get all those pretty effects, textures, and graphics at its max like you would get if you were playing in docked mode, which technically you are, just in portable play. For many, this is going to be a game changer, and I'm sure Smash fans are loving this update. Bayonetta 3 sure had it rough when played in handheld mode. The reduced resolution, the texture quality, and effects, they were not great. Playing on Switch 2, at the very least, buffed up the frame rates to higher levels consistently, which I reported on last year. But now with the ability to run the game like it's being played in docked mode while playing in handheld mode, yeah, this is a big improvement here. Things are clearer, more detailed, and we get a higher resolution, so things don't look so blurry now. This is much better. Astral Chain is another game from Platinum Games that had the same issue when it came to its handheld mode. It was pretty rough. With the handheld boost feature enabled, you get a much better looking game. It is quite a drastic difference from where it was before. I venture to say it's the same big improvement in visual quality and differences like Bayonetta 3. The only issue is it's still 30 FPS, and I don't see that changing unless there's some kind of Switch 2 edition or so. With the handheld boost feature being a thing, you knew we had to take a look at some Pokémon games running with it on. Scarlet and Violet already got a dedicated Switch 2 update last year that was free, so there's no need to look there. But Arceus and Sword and Shield did not get that kind of update, and those games definitely could have used one. In the meantime, the handheld boost feature does help these games out greatly here in portable play, with the increased resolution and overall better visual quality. In fact, if all you do is play the Pokemon games in handheld mode, then this feature alone might be enough for you. So far we've looked at first-party games with the handheld boost mode enabled on Switch 2. So let's take a look at some third-party games. Dragon Quest XI looks much better with the handheld boost feature on, but I don't think it's nearly as drastic in terms of differences as some of the other RPGs I've talked about today, like the Xenoblade games or Fire Emblem. Resolution boost is welcomed here, and you'll see a little bit of an increase in details of the characters and the environment, and the overall visual quality is going to be much better. Batman Arkham Asylum and Batman Arkham City from the Arkham Trilogy collection gets a bit of a minor boost with a handheld boost feature enabled. And this is typically what you will expect with a bunch of Switch 1 games. Generally, you'll see a resolution bump from 720p to 1080p or so. And honestly, for a lot of these games, that is still good. Games will look a bit clearer this way when trying to match the resolution of the Switch 2 screen. The Crash Trilogy is another example where the differences are not going to be nearly as drastic as the other games we've talked about so far in this video. Still though, the increase in resolution is very much welcomed, which means the Trilogy here will not have that sort of small blur that it might have had before, running at 720p or whatever the resolution it was running at before. 720p was the max it could be. At a higher resolution, it'll look better on this Switch 2 screen. Grid Autosport is a weird one because there's a variety of different performance modes you can enable to get to the results you prefer, ones that favor quality, performance, and battery life. Obviously, with the Handheld Boost enabled, the game will essentially run like it is in docked mode, so you're only going to get access to the quality and performance modes. That all said, the biggest difference here is just the bump up in resolution. Like I said before, a lot of Switch 1 games are going to experience this when played with the Boost mode enabled. I for sure had to test Monster Hunter Rise, and it is one of my most played original Switch games, so I was curious to see how it looked with the Handheld Boost enabled. And while it's not the most drastic in terms of difference, I think most will notice an improvement in the visual quality, and of course the higher resolution with the Boost mode enabled is going to be a nice plus here. I think it looks pretty good with it. I mean, it always looked good in dock mode, so you get to experience that now in handheld mode. One thing I do want to mention is all those Switch 1 2D games are always topped out at 720p or so when they were played in handheld mode on Switch 2. With the boost enabled, most of these games will be bumped up to 1080p now, and as a result, they should look sharper on the screen. A good example of this is the Sega Ages games. It's not going to be anything drastic, but for those who play a lot of 2D games in handheld mode on Switch 2, for sure you're going to notice a difference here. Say goodbye to that little bit of blurry effect that you used to have before. Persona 5 Royal looks better with the handheld boost feature on, for sure. The higher resolution certainly helps, with better details and effects as well. It seems like if you play RPGs or JRPGs in handheld mode, you're going to really appreciate this update. Personally, I will for sure have it enabled for all my Switch 1 RPGs. So last year, I talked about The Witcher 3 and how in the graphics setting for the game, yes that is a thing, you can basically enable everything within that menu and have everything to max and not have any hit to the performance when the game is played on Switch 2. So with that in mind, what else does the handheld boost offer for the game when played in portable play? Generally, just a bump in resolution. Still, with the power of the Switch 2, this game does look a lot better than where it was originally when played in handheld mode on the original Switch. Still would love a dedicated Switch 2 version though. I say that a lot, but I'm sure many have the same wish. So in short, yeah, this new feature is a game changer, and for those who prefer playing their games in handheld mode, you're going to love playing your Switch 1 games with this feature turned on. They're going to look much better. It's just, you're going to be charging your system a lot more if you do use it. Yeah, I hope we get a new version of the system down the line that gets a improved battery. The Switch 2 battery doesn't last too long. It's just a thing. So let me know down below what you think of the new handheld boost option. Do you like it? Have you used it? Have you encountered any games that do not take advantage of it? Feel free to post that all down below in the comments. I'm looking forward to reading those. Personally, there wasn't too many games that I've encountered where the handheld boost option didn't work, like the Pikmin games for example, but that could always change too, with a firmware update or a game update or so. Anyway, that is it for me today. Make sure you're subscribed, notifications turned on, so you do not miss out on any future videos. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you soon on the next video.